Hello everyone, myself koya Sree Harsha. I recently secured 6th rank in CSE 2017 exam. And to give a brief introduction about myself, I am Sree Harsha. I did production and industrial engineering from NIT Jamshedpur 2012 passed out. Then I worked for 4 years in Hyderabad and I quit my job in 2016 and started preparation for civil services. And I came to Delhi and appeared for civil services 2017 exam and cleared this in the first attempt itself. Today I will be talking about few things about civil services preparation, like how to select an optional and how to manage your time, how to a rough timeline of how do you manage time for the next 1 year, and then the basic rough strategy of prelims, and then few points about how to write GS answers. To start with, optional for last 3-4 years, if you see, it has become a major factor in deciding your final results. So, like if you see my score, I have got 330. My optional is anthropology. I have got 338 marks out of 500. I think that played a very important role in deciding which the rank actually. So first thing to do this is how do we select an optional. First I will talk about few checklists, like what I have thought, and then I'll speak about how I have come down to anthropology as an optional. See, first when you are selecting an optional, first never go for an optional that just because your friend has said or some coaching institute has said. First go based on your interest, because you will have to read the optional for next 1 year, if not more than 1 year. So go it based on your interest. Second thing, when you are selecting an optional, see that before you are doing, go through the syllabus once and the previous year's questions and the availability of material in the market. The third thing when you're what to do is like check for the guidance or a mentor or like test series in the that is available in the market. Like if you are to take an optional like agriculture, you should see whether you have a test series in Delhi or Pune or something. So based on that you do. And third thing I would say, since this is a competitive exam, just go through the previous year trends of marking schemes, like how the trend is like. I would say for anthropology, if you see for last 3-4 years, the trend is positive, like the marking scheme is on the higher side. So these 4-5 points you consider and talk to some seniors or some people who have cleared the exam with this optional. These 4-5 things you should consider before selecting an optional. First thing, go with your interest. Second thing, go for the syllabus, material available in the market, guidance available in the market, and then you see the marking pattern for the last few years. And I would share a few thoughts, like how I have come down to anthropology as an optional. When I started preparation, I was in dilemma. I understood the importance of optional very early. I have seen the previous year's marks, and in the starting there were several thoughts in me, like should I go for history, should I go for geography or sociology, political science. So what I did was I started reading history for 10 days through NCERT books. So I thought for the first 1 week history went well, but when in the first reading, when I started doing it for the second reading, I felt it a bit bored, and I couldn't do it more than 10-15 days at a stretch. So I thought I was not able to read history at a stretch for 10-15 days. How do I do it for the next 2 years? And so I have dropped history as an optional then. Then again I came to geography. I started reading NCERTs there. I started reading from 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th. Then over a period of time, geography also I felt it's very hard for me and I couldn't deal with it for next 2 years. Then I also dropped geography. So out of the 40-42 optionals, I have come down to like 3-4-5 optionals. Like if you see, political science I have come down, sociology I have come shortlisted, anthropology I have shortlisted, and I have also gone to Telugu literature also, because I have seen for last couple of years there was a good marking trend in Telugu literature. Like there are people who scored some 330, 350 in Telugu literature. So I thought of doing it with Telugu literature. Then I saw the syllabus. I spoke to some couple of people with Telugu literature background. Then I spoke with my mother. She was an MA Telugu literature. So then I understood the difficulties with Telugu literature, and then I gave up that idea also. So finally I have come down to political science, anthropology and sociology. Again the idea was political science, I was keen to take political science, but again I thought the syllabus is a bit dynamic and I need to update regularly. So I thought that will be a bit extra burden. Since I'm already doing the GS part, that's a burden. So I don't want to burden me. So I again removed that political science from my list, and I finally came down to sociology and anthropology. And then I spoke with a friend of mine who is preparing for civils. He said like anthropology for last 10 years questions were more or less repetitive. Like if you see, I saw the 10 years papers, the questions were at the end, 70% of the questions are more or like repetitive or same core question they are asking. So that is one advantage with anthropology. And I have also seen like the toppers, if you see with the same range of mental abilities, their anthropology can give you at any day plus 10 marks. So that helped me. So then I finally came down to anthropology as an optional. So this is how I finally came down to anthropology as an optional. So the basic thing is do based on your interest. That is very much important. Don't go with the coaching institutes or again mark if the topper comes from a certain optional, take that optional. That don't go like that. This is one thing. And now secondly, since I cleared it in my first attempt, I would like to speak like how did I manage time for the next 1 year. Like you are attempting for 2019, now we are in August, like you have decent 10 months of time. How did I manage this time, or like how should you manage this time? Firstly, since you have already selected an optional, first thing is next within 4 months, like say August, September, October, November or start of December, you should be able to do it your optional thoroughly in the sense at least one reading should be done with your optional. And if that means if you are going to refer 2-3 coaching center material, make your own notes, please do it right in this 4 months period. And you also go in this 4 months period, you also go through the previous year's questions for a particular chapter. Like if you are doing a certain topic, then after completion of that topic, refer the previous year's questions and see how rough idea of how to answer the questions. You should be in a position like when you complete by November and December, if you see that year's question paper, you should be able to have a rough idea of how to attempt those questions. Like if certain question come from a certain topic, even if you don't know exact answer for that question, you should have a rough idea. So what is your basic structure of answer and what are the points you are going to write, that basic idea you should have. So by November end, you should be done with your optional one single reading. And that will, I believe if you are going for a classes, it will take 2.5 hours and 2.5 hours for the next. So maybe 5 hours will be spent on daily on optional, 5-6 hours, that's a decent time on that. Second thing is you from from July, August, you should also start reading newspaper. You can read Hindu or Express. I would say Hindu is good for beginners. Initially it might take like 3 hours, 2.5 hours for the beginners. Like when I started reading newspaper, I was able to complete that in about 3 hours 15 minutes, the Hindu newspaper. So over a period of time, I reduced the time. I understood what to read and how to skip the unnecessary topics, unnecessary points, and what are the key points that I need to do it. So now I could do Hindu paper in 1 hour 15 minutes from end to end. So when you start reading Hindu in July, August, it will take 2.5 hours, 3 hours. Don't worry about that Hindu. Just understand how to read and what topics you should read. Like for example, you should read the statements given by Prime Minister Mr. Modi, but you don't need to read the statement given by the BJP president or like the political news. You don't need to read, and you don't even required to read that acquisitions, business mergers and all. You only need to read the economy part. There are some topics like philosophical topics, philosophical editorials like in Hindu you can even skip that. You can even skip the last page, the science and technology page or sports page, you can even skip that. You should, I think by next 3-4 months, you should come down from 2.5-3 hours to you should be able to do newspaper in 1 hour 45 minutes, 1.5 hour like 2 hours. You should be able to do newspaper till December you come. You should be able to do it in this position. And if you see the timing for the day, like 6 hours will go for your optional, and 2.5-3 hours will go for your this newspaper, and you will have only like hardly 4-5 hours for the day. Like if you are attending any coaching class, that will also take 2.5 hours. So you'll have hardly left with 2.5-3 hours in a day. So what I would suggest is revise the topics that have been covered in class, or put a target in a weekly basis or a monthly basis. Like in the next 10 days, I would cover polity, Lakshmikant, so and so topic, and check that progress after 10 days. This is how you should manage your time till November end, because till November end you will have certain understanding of the subject, and your burden of optional also will go by November. Post that, I would suggest till November you will get more time, like 5-6 hours extra on GS preparation, and time will also be reduced for Hindu newspaper reading also. So you should complete one reading of syllabus by December end, or like mid-Jan. Like from mid-Jan, your basic reading of history, geography, polity, or even environment, the art and culture, this one reading should be done before mid-Jan, like mid-Jan 15, Jan 20 will be fine. If you see for the last 3-4 years trend in the prelims papers, the number of seats are coming down, there's an increase in competition, like the margin of error is very less, like it's in points. So I would suggest start early. I started preparation for prelims, like the prelims was in July, and I started it by Jan end. So I would say start early. No problem if you spend 10-15 minutes on prelims, 10-15 days on prelims preparation. Start early for the prelims. Like you can start in mid-Jan 20, and you can go in full prelims mode, from mission mode, like from Jan. Like you should again, the three things I would say for the prelims preparation is, like, one, you should have current affairs should be on your fingertips, and the second thing, there are some standard books, like you have for polity you have Lakshmikant, for history you have Spectrum, and all other things. I would share the book list after in the end of the video. And the third thing is practice test. Like so coming back to current affairs, daily you will be reading the Hindu newspaper, and if you are interested, if you feel like making notes, you make a notes of daily happenings. Like you don't need to write the facts, just write the issue. Like if there is another issue, write down the different views what they say in editorials, and write it in a page. Like collect issues and make notes of issues. Don't make notes of facts, like this happened, this so and so thing happened. Just make the issue as a notes. And you'll read current affairs from the newspaper. Mostly it will be Hindu. You can also go for Indian Express. And what you do is, at the month end, there's a monthly compilation of current affairs. Like you have many different coaching issues like Vision, Wajiram, Inside. There's so many people giving you current affairs magazine. You can pick any of that from the market, because that is fine, not an issue. I went for Vision monthly current affairs. I read that like 3-4 times before closing it at the end of month. So what I did was, so at the end I used to read Hindu newspaper. I used to write my own notes for issues, and I used to read them whenever I get bored. Third thing is monthly current affairs magazine. I did it 3-4 times. So overall, like, I was doing current affairs for 3-4-5 times. So current affairs was on my fingertips. The second thing is the standard books. Like if you see, for polity you have Lakshmikant, for Spectrum, environment you have Shankar. So these are some books that you will have to do it in anyway. So I read these books. What I did was, I started by Jan, and I was done with one reading. From Jan, and I was actually started doing it quickly. I started to read I started to realize which topic to read, focus more, which topic to skip. So I did them repeatedly. Like those standard books, they are limited books. Don't go for too many books. Like you don't need to refer 10 books for polity. Like you don't need to refer D.D. Basu. You don't need to refer Lakshmikant. Stick to one book, Lakshmikant, or any book, D.D. Basu. I would say Lakshmikant is good. Stick to that. Do it repeatedly. Like you should have done like at least 4 or 5 times at the minimum. So read those standard books. For everything you have standard books. The basic thing is keep your sources limited. The third part of this is very important thing is practice test. Like, because at the end of the day, everybody reads the same Lakshmikant, everybody reads same Hindu, everybody reads same Spectrum. Like 99% of people read same book list. So how do you present that? How do you differentiate that in exam? Like in the 2 hours, how do you present yourself as a different candidate, you are a better candidate? That comes again with practice. Like you need to practice a lot of tests. Like there are several tests in you join for a test series, or you can get it from the market. So again, when doing test series, you can start from like say mid February or mid February, end of February, you can start having test series. Like whenever you do a test, do it for the 2 hours, do it in a simulated way, and at the end of test, try to identify how many of your questions were correct, how many wrong, and what actually how many questions that were correct and that you actually guessed. So you make a list of those things, like how many questions were how many guesses were correct, how many 50-50s were correct, how many you attempted in a complete fluke. You make a list of that and go through the answers, and you will understand this. You will understand how your guessing work, how your how your 50-50s worked, and what are your thought process. And go through those questions also which you are correct actually, which you marked correct, because that will you are actually checking your thought process, okay, whether you are thinking the right way or not. And I would share my experience here with the practices. Like I started it in mid February. Like for the first 10-15 tests, I was only attempting some 50-55 questions, and my strike rate was around 70-72%. So I thought, like after 7-8 questions, 7-8 tests, 10 tests, I realized with 50 attempts and 70-72% strike rate, I was neither that side or this side. I was not going to clear this, I understood. So there are only two things for me. Either I should increase my strike rate or increase the number of questions. I tried for next 10 tests, like increasing the strike rate, but hardly it went more than 75. So I realized after 10, 15, 20 tests, there's nothing I can do with the strike rate or the hit rate. So I thought I should increase more questions. So then from next test, I started increasing the number of attempts. Like I attempted 65, then I attempted 70. With the increase in number of attempts, also my strike rate didn't go. Like it was only 70, 73, 72%. So and I understood that I couldn't increase the 70, 72 part, but I can increase the number of questions I attempt. So I started doing it 75, 80, and in the last 10-15 tests I could do it 90, 92 questions. In the final exam also I have attempted 92 questions, and I think I was able to answer 70% of the questions correctly. So my score, I think it was around 108 or something. So again, this thing, you need to understand like how you are attempting the questions and what are your key strengths. Like my strength was I am attempting number of questions, and my weak point was I couldn't convert them. So you need to identify your strength and practice more there. Like I would say I attempted around 70 to 80 practice tests daily at morning 9 to 11. I think I simulated the exam. Then I spent 2 hours on that, and then in the second half, like 3.5-4 hours, I used to spend on the questions, like where I used to spend on analyzing the questions, like how certain questions went right, what is my approach for this, what is my thinking for the different question. So I went on 3-4 hours and I analyzed the answers there. That is one thing. And so and the other thing I would say, do different number of institutes, like there are Vision, Insights, Vajiram. There are so many things, because if you do different test series, you will actually prepare for the worst. Actually, if you are preparing for Vision, there are certain types of questions coming, there are certain types of marking and answer pattern there. You will able to realize after 10-15 tests. So attempt different questions, different test series. You are actually familiarizing with yourself with worst case scenario. Like if you are attempting Insight, there are certain more factual questions there. If you are attempting Vajiram, there are certain level of difficulty is high. So attempt more number of test series. That is very important. And over a time, actually you will understand how to solve questions. Even if certain questions you don't know anything, like you can eliminate couple of options. Like you can eliminate the extremes, you can eliminate the factual, you can even through etymology, or you can break down the word, you can eliminate certain options. So this actually comes with a repeated practice. If you are able to solve 40-45 questions, 40-45 tests over 1.5-2 months, then you will understand you will develop this guesstimation or that intuition inside, like this should be the answer. And this will actually give you 3-4 questions advantage in the final exam. So do repeated practice, and not only that, analyze your answers, analyze your mistakes, analyze even the correct questions also. You should be able to analyze, spend 2-3.5 hours on analyzing the answers actually. So if you are able to do these things, like current affairs, doing it thoroughly, it should be on your fingertips and standard books. And the third thing is repeatedly writing the practice tests. I think prelims should be you should be able to clear the prelims decently. Now we'll talk a bit about the GS mains preparation. Like my GS mains score was 962. I probably it was third highest in the overall list. So I got 962 marks in that. In the GS general studies, if you see, I got 492 marks in GS itself. Like I was 120 in paper 1, 122 in paper 2, 146 in paper 3, and in ethics I got 102. So this was a pretty decent score. Like now I will share a few points what my approach was. How did I approach the answer writing here? See, first thing I did was I never practiced answer writing before prelims. What I did was I was only making notes, and I was making notes for the issues. And whenever I was making notes, I was making notes in certain type of answer. It's not like I was just copying. I was writing if there's an issue like simultaneous elections. Like I used to write what is simultaneous elections, what are the advantages, what are the cons, what are the problems with simultaneous elections, and what are the constitutional challenges. In a different side heading I used to put, and what a conclusion I used to put in a certain way, like different editorial, 2-3 conclusions I used to put, and then finally I used to have my own opinion on that issue. So I was making notes like that. So only this part I did for the answer writing before prelims, and whatever my answer writing I did purely after mains. So there are couple of few points, important points before going in detail about GS 1, 2, 3, 4. Like first thing is my target was I need to attempt 20 questions. That's again because like I was never into this topic, like this idea that you need to attempt 15, 16, 17 quality questions. Because if you see the last 2-3 years mains questions, they were like very subjective. There's a question I think in GS2, like they were trying to ask, they are asking to analyze the poverty elimination programs. Like these are open-ended questions, and you don't have a fixed answer for this. And I don't think how much ever answer you write, again that will be a subjective. So better to attempt 20 questions, strike them well. And the other thing I focused was I attempt all the 20 questions with a decent average or a bit more, that quality answers. Like you don't need to get 10 by 10 in first question and 1 by 10 in last question. If you can maintain 6 by 10 on all the 20 questions, I think you will be scored decently. Like these couple of points. And the third thing is, like you don't need to check at the end, starting of the paper, you don't need to fix, yeah, this is important question, this is easier question, and you don't need to prioritize questions there. You start whenever you get a paper. Whenever I get a paper, I used to take the question paper aside and start writing the answers. The next thing is, like they follow strict timeline. Like whenever you are doing for the test series or like minute your time. Like for a 10 marker, you should complete within 8 minutes sharp. Even if you know so many things, you don't write more than 8 minutes. For the 15 marker, you should be able to finish in 10 minutes, 10 minutes I think. It doesn't matter how much ever material you have, you should be able to do it in next 10 minutes, 10, 12, 11 minutes like that. And the second thing is you don't need to fill pages end to end. Like for 10 marker, you will get 2 pages. You only need to do like 1.5 page will be sufficient. For a 15 marker, you will get 3 pages. You don't need to fill end to end. You only need to do like 2 pages or 2.2, 2.3 pages. And the other thing is, like how do we finish it in 8 minutes is to have a like proper structure. Like you can have a 3-4 line introduction, then standard stuff you get put side heading, don't write it in a bullet format. And you don't need to write bullets for 2, 3, 4 lines. Just write bullet for 1 line, if not 1.5 line, that should be enough. And try to cover 5-6 bullet points, because when you are writing 1 line bullet point, you are able to put different dimensions. Like you will cover 6-7 dimensions. When you are trying to explain the same bullet point, you will actually end up writing 3 lines for a bullet. Again, that becomes a para, and you will only write 3-4 bullet points. So don't do that. And the other thing is, have a decent conclusion. Your conclusion should be optimistic, and you should show some energy and your values actually. These things, and try to put if you are unable to put your thoughts into paper, you can draw flow charts or maps that will eat away the space and reduce your time. You can do that. That is one good thing in order to do this in 8 minutes. This is one thing. And the major thing is, write more tests. The number of tests you write, the more good you get. Because I wrote on that 3 month period, I wrote some 40-45 tests. Like I wrote some 17 GS tests and some 17 to 18 anthropology test series, and then I wrote some 30 essays, like you can say 15 tests, and remaining I practiced in the room or in the library itself. So write more number of tests, because again, like I said earlier, this is everybody reads the same book, everybody reads the same material. Again, it's not how much you know, but how do you present in the exam, like 3 hours. The other thing I did after prelims was going for, I started reading Indian Express also. I read Indian Express along with Hindu. Like I started reading the explained part in Indian Express and the editorials in the Indian Express. So like Indian Express the Hindu was more like a leftist, I felt, and I thought something else should be there to balance this. I was getting too much left centric there. So I thought Indian Express gave me a different perspective, and I started reading Indian Express. Like there's a question this time, I think there's a question on mob lynching or like religiosity in paper 2, I think. There's paper 1 or paper 2. Like for example, if you take Hindu, like about mob lynching or this killing in the name of cow, what Hindu talks this is the fascist rule, there's a this certain ideology is doing this so and so, and they start this. It's more like a criticism of the government or something, and you cannot write these things in the exam. Actually, the same thing in the Indian Express, you have this what Indian Express editorial talks is like if you have mob lynching, if you have killing in the name of cows, you should actually improve your systems. Like you should improve your police, you should improve your judiciary, you should improve your law and order. Once you do that, actually this mob lynching will automatically get down. You should improve. This is actually the more relevant thing, more actual practical applicable thing. If you are strengthening your systems, that will help you. I actually wrote this part in the answer itself. This is there in Indian Express editorial. So I think this will actually give marks instead of just one particular type of view. So this I started doing that. And coming to specifics like GS 1, 2, 3. GS 1, like it was more like history, geography and social issues. This is the main part in the exam. And for the history, like there are 3-4 parts, like world history you have India post independence and Indian struggle for independence, and you have art and culture part. And India struggle for independence, I think you should be able to do with spectrum will be more than sufficient. Even in case if you don't know certain questions, try to write all those relevant events near that particular year. Say if there is a question on 1928, what are the happenings in like what are the major change in 1928, or what are the major change in 1930, like that. Even if you don't know that thing, just write the events around that. Like if you can, for example, if there is a question on 1918, 1917 or 18, what are the happenings, what are the major shift in that. Even if you don't know what is that major shift, write the events that are happening around that. You can say that Mahatma Gandhi came from that South Africa, so he has his own different ideology. And you can say from after 1919 there was a communist, 1917 there was a communist revolution. After around 1919 there was end of war. So these things, you can write all these things and link it to the answer. This will make your answer a decent one. So don't leave the answer, just attempt that and try to relate all those points near that. That will give you pretty decent marks. And the second thing is, when you are doing for the post India independence, I think hardly you will get 1 or 2 questions at max from this India post independence. Don't spend too much time on this part. You can refer any coaching center material. It will be some, I think I saw visions post India independence for this thing. Some 50 pages material comes. I read that, but that should be sufficient. Or there's this thing, you can even see Pradhan Mantri. There's I think in some news channel you will get Pradhan Mantri episode. If you can see daily one episode, that will also be general. That will also be fine, and you can write the answers with your general understanding of your subject. The third thing is world history. Again, many people started asking me this question post my clearing. I cleared this exam. Like, how did I do this? I referred actually Balian sir's material. There's a handwritten notes. I think this comes about this much size. What I did, I read first time when I read that world history, I read it as a story. Like there's no idea in my mind that I need to by heart these certain topics. So I read it as a story. And second when I was doing it for the second reading, I tried to understand what the story or the important things in the revolution. And again, don't spend too much time on world history also. Probably you'll get couple of not more than 2-3 questions, but try to identify those keywords, like there are decolonization, colonization, and you have communism. Try to identify definition and certain trend, how that went, what are the countries that actually happened, and the basic events there. And even if question comes, prepare some standard openings. Like I prepared some standard opening, like there's something in balancer notes, like if there's a American War of Independence, you can say it like American War of Independence is the reason and response to the socio-cultural economic conditions prevailing in that time. This is my opening line, and this line actually fits everywhere. If you remove that American War of Independence and put 1905 Swaraj movement, Swadeshi movement, you can say Swadeshi movement and was a reason and reaction to the socio-economic and political conditions prevailing at that time in the India. Or even you can put the Nazi rule also, like Hitler's rise of Hitler. You can say rise of Hitler was a reason and reaction, response and reaction to the socio-economic conditions prevailing in that time. Even if if a certain question comes from world history and if you don't know something, don't leave the question. Like I followed this thing. Even if certain question comes and if I don't know something, I used to write 4 or 5 different aspects, like economic. If they ask some, even if they ask some like French Revolution, if I don't know what is actually French Revolution, I used to analyze on 4 or 5 topics. Like I used to do what is the economic condition at that time, and I used to write couple of points on that. I used to write what is the political situation that time. The political situation was, you can say, there's a division, the certain class of people were ruling, and that was king was becoming despotic, like that. The third thing, how was the social condition that time? Like you can say for French Revolution, you can write the general thing, like there was 3 classes in society: knights, the rich people, nobles, and the common peasants. So there was this problem of class struggle also. The fourth thing I used to write, like if there is any spark, like if there is any ideological support or any philosopher or some idea, some intelligent person is giving some thoughts, some provoking, like that I used to write. I think in French Revolution you have certain people who are doing that. So if you can cover on 4 or 5 points this thing, your answer will be decent. Like if you can write couple of points on economy, polity, social condition, and there and some ideological this thing, your answer will be sufficient, and you can conclude by some decent conclusion, like couple of lines. Your answer should have a conclusion that will give you the complete holistic look to the answer. And coming to art and culture, this actually for last 3-4 years, I was analyzing only for last 3-4 years. The questions were like this: analyze this Vijayanagara Empire, this at Gupta's time. So the questions were more like in general. They are not asking in particular what so and so this thing. So what you do is, if you can get Vajiram class note, the notes is very good. Do it. I think you should get in market. Do that thoroughly. Second thing, there is NCERT book for fine arts. I think 11th class. You can do that. And the third thing is, you can do it selective reading from Nitin Singhania. Don't go for the end to end. Do it selective reading. Even when you are doing that, do it like understand the trend. Like if there is some puppetry, just identify how the puppetry is done. Like what it's trying to present in puppetry. What are different puppetry in different states. Just try to understand that. And this should be sufficient. And like if you are able to do these 3 things, I think you should be able to answer the art and culture part. And I would say there are for some few areas, like when you are doing art and culture, like Vijayanagara Empire, they might ask Shungas, they might ask the Guptas. Like this time they ask Guptas. You can say, you can even refer about Buddhism, like what difference between Hinayana and Mahayana Buddhism. Then you can there might be a question on Kanishka rule and his this art and culture. Then post that, I think there is no question for some time on Cholas, South Indian kings like Cholas, Pandyas, Pallavas. Like they're good at temple construction, so you can also go through that, like the temple construction in Cholas, art and architecture in Cholas, or art and architecture, art, culture, literature in like Rashtrakutas. You can go through. You can make it as a topic like literary works of Rashtrakutas or literary works of Guptas, and make a notes on that. So prepare some standard questions like Mughal, how the this thing architecture went through in Mughal period, how the architecture went through in Sultanate period. You can have a standard answers for this, and you can represent that. So this should be more or less sufficient for art and culture, and your history part should be fine with this. Coming to second thing with geography, like the questions were more like application part of geography. They are not asking like what is this, what is the core concept. They are asking the application side, like they are asking like resources, how the resources and industries are related, like how the climate happenings, whether in particular region, how is that related to economy of that region. They are asking more like an application part of it. So try to present answers in a more application side, like you can go for mineral industry, how the industry is located and which minerals they are located, what is the climate around that, some basic concepts like volcanoes, earthquakes, and recent this thing, how landslides are happening, like how urban floods are happening. So you can have a rough idea about that. And you should also have good grip on map. Like I would suggest paste the India and world map in front of your study table. Just go through that. Whenever you read certain topic, just identify that part. Like if you read Appalachian Mountains, you don't need to know which state it go. You only need to know like which part of certain North America it goes. Just have a decent idea of maps. And when you're writing answers for geography, try to present in it. It will be good if you are doing it with maps, like draw an India map and draw Western Ghats, Eastern Ghats. You will get a good way to represent your answers. And for geography, I think this should be sufficient. Like NCERT should be fine and GC Leong should be fine. And try to present answers in more with maps, more with pictures. That will give you more advantage. The third part in GS1 is the social issues part. To be frank, actually I only followed current affairs for these social issues. I didn't go through anything else. And I had prepared some standard definitions of urbanization. Again, the smart cities. These are some standard definitions, and I have some standard conclusions, like how do we deal with urbanization, like some smart cities. Like I used to say, I was more like smart cities are a good initiative, but we also need to focus should be more on developing basic infrastructure and trying to develop second tier cities. Something of this sorts. I used to have my answer. And just get up to date with the current bills and social issues like women, child, senior people. Again, standard definitions for urbanization, poverty, globalization, this standard social issues thing, and get up to date with current affairs. Even whatever you write, connect it with current affairs, like, and try to present different aspects. Like if there are certain questions come and you don't know what to write, try to write on 4-5 points, like how that like if you say last time there was a question on IT industry or something, I couldn't remember the question. So when I was only writing on 5-6 points, right? How that affects women, how that affects the IT related issue, how that affects women, how that affects children, how that affects senior citizens, and how overall it affects the family education system. This is some standard stuff, like how it affects marriage, how that it affects family, how it affects education system, how it affects parent children. Right on the general points, you will be able to make a decent answer for social issues. And I think this get up to date with current affairs, try to link with current affairs. This is best thing for the social issues part. And this GS1 paper is more or less scoring, and it's the most factual, I think, in all the papers. Try to maximize your score here, practice more. Don't leave don't leave any question unattempted. Like I would share this example, like I think last time there's a question on cryosphere, something on cryosphere, and I don't know what is cryosphere actually. So I was like, I was in a position like I can't skip this question, so I need to write something on this. So I was like, I was looking what is cryosphere, and I saw I read the question in Hindi also. There's like something like himam, and in himam in Telugu actually means manchu, and like himam in Telugu is snow. So I got okay, cryosphere is something related to snow. So I wrote opening lines about general pollution, water pollution causes to this. Then I started writing its impact on snow, and I extended it to snow, ice, glaciers, this thing I extended, and I wrote couple of 3, 4, 5 points on ice, snow related, and then I wrote how it is affecting that, and then I started writing some points about some global conference, Paris climate change and all those things. And lastly I concluded this is a serious problem, this will hurt with snow melting, water level will rise, it will hurt this thing. So we need to have collective effort like this. So something of this sort I framed my answer and I wrote in a structured way. I think this should suffice that question requirement. So write something, don't leave a question basically, because you are actually preparing for last 2 years and you will have some decent content in your brain. Even if you don't want, there is some content in your brain. If you start putting pen on paper, you will get some content. So don't leave a question. And the next thing is GS2. Like I got 122 marks in GS2. That's pretty decent marks there. Again for GS2, I didn't. My sources were like I was reading Hindu, I was reading Indian Express, and I was reading the current affairs magazines of Vision. I was doing my Vision current affairs. These 3 things I have done, and I did was Wajiram class notes. I did that too Ravindran sir's class notes I did, and apart from the standard Lakshmikant. Only these things I did. These are my basic source for GS2. That too polity and governance part. Again GS2, there's like some standard thumb rules I put in some GS2. Like whenever you get a question, I used to write 3-4 lines opening just to open the question, build a context for this. Like I used to write simple definition. It was never like hi-fi answer. Like simple definition, what is what. Then I used to break the question, attempt the questions in a side heading like 3-4 bullet points. Again while writing this, I used to mention constitutional articles, like article 21 said this, article 34, 345, 365 said this, so and so. I used to mention these articles. The next thing is I used to write Supreme Court judgments actually. That this is actually developed in the process of preparation. I was preparing for the issues, so I got to know some standard judgments for this thing. If there is some center-state relation, I used to refer Bommai judgment, so and something like that. And the next thing I used to do, for every question I had a link with current affairs. Like I used to write some point from current affairs and link it to the question. Like for example, there is a question on I think there is a question on Puttaswamy right to freedom actually. When the question was that they are actually expecting you to write Puttaswamy judgment. So you should actually write constitutional articles, some Supreme Court judgment, and you should link with current affairs. These are very basic things if you want to increase your marks in GS2. And your conclusion should be, that's actually the most important part I would think in GS2. Like it actually shows how much you understood the concept, how much you understood the issue. So when you are writing conclusion, you can write some standard, if you don't know anything, write some standard conclusion. Like for simultaneous elections, I didn't have any conclusion. Like while I was writing practices, I was writing simultaneous election is a major step in Indian democratic system. So any such large step should need to have larger debate and discussion. This is my conclusion. So it was a decent conclusion actually. And I would say prepare some standard conclusions, like when some standard conclusions, like you can have some committee reports. Like for civil services report, you have HOTA committee. So for water, you have Mihir Shah committee. I think for center-state relations, you have Punchi committee. Try to bring this committee names in the final conclusion. Like when you are writing something, I think it's time to look look deeply and implement Punchi Commission report or Sarkaria Commission report points. You can write it like that. Even if you don't know anything, I had this 4-5 points in my mind. Like even if I didn't have any answer, if I didn't have any suggestions like that, I used to have some standard suggestions. Use more technology, you create more debate, have more discussions, and third, bring more empowerment to the local masses, decentralize more, and empower women. Like these are 4 or 5 points which you can write for any question. Like you can use technology for any question, you can use decentralization for any, you can use more discussion, debates for any question. So write these 4 or 5 points even if you don't know. So this thing is very much important for GS answer, GS polity answer. Like constitutional articles you should write. You should write Supreme Court judgments. You should write you should link with current affairs and have a decent conclusion, like some committee report. Like there are sometimes like there are certain topics that you don't have committee report actually. So I used to write some standards, some parliamentary standing committee has given so and so this. Recent Supreme Court judgment has Supreme Court in his judgment has done this so and so this. because there are so many parliamentary standing committees, something or other gave some report. So you can write some standard parliamentary committee reports at so and so this, and write your opinion there. That will be fine. Next thing in the GS2 is international relations. For international relations, IR part, I only did current affairs. Current affairs I did thoroughly. Second thing I did was I was following Rajya Sabha TV debates, like India's today, India's world. There's a big picture in Rajya Sabha. I was following only that. So I like current, when I mix current affairs with those different debates, I got a decent understanding of this thing. For example, like if there is India-China relationship, over a period of watching the debates, reading current affairs, I developed some basic core of what India-China relationship. For example, India and China are both going to be superpowers in Asia. Next thing is China wanted to be next superpower, and America is withdrawing from world stage, and China is actually taking this position. When it's actually taking this, when it is actually taking the world power status, it's actually pushing India. It's actually saying to India, hey, look, dude, we are that superpower. You are not superpower, and this is what actually happening. So this is my basic understanding of India-China relationship. So whatever happenings are there, I used to fix it in this framework. Like use a string of pulse. I used to fix in this context. If there is a India, Prime Minister Modi inviting ASEAN heads, that's also again this thing. It's also saying that India is also countering that. Even the formation of Quad, that is also as a response to this. These are all I used to fix in this basic framework. And I would say try to understand this thing, and I try to identify this basic underlying core concepts of relationship. And obviously you can't have everything for every country. So for example, if there is a different countries, they say for tomorrow they ask a question, right, on India, Mongolia or India, Uzbekistan relations. You don't know anything about that. So I had some few points in my hand. Like whenever they say something India, Mongolia, India different, or India any country, I used to analyze it on 4-5 points. Like first I used to write geographical significance. First point used to be like if it's India and Mongolia, I used to write Mongolia is immediate a Central Asian country and immediate neighbor of China, so that's some strategic significance. Second thing I used to write how that helps in Indian economy. So I used to write Mongolia has a good minerals that can help India in developing industries, some basic thing, energy security. Third thing is in the political significance, like you can say India political aspects, like you can if you don't know anything, I used to write like this. Since India is trying to become a permanent member in Security Council, it's the time that we need to take more countries along with us, and in that process, Mongolia is a good country, which we can rely on, something like that. Then you can write cultural aspects, like some cultural relation between those two in both those countries, like India and Mongolia. You are writing, you can say Buddhism. So Buddhism, we have common connect that connects our people, and that will help us to develop this thing. And last thing, over recent years, there is more focus on terrorism. You can also bring that aspect also. Like terrorism, you can bring the Buddhist ideals will help in de-radicalization of Islamization, something like that. Some connect you can bring. So if you can identify on these 4-5 points, like if you can economic importance, geographical significance, overall geopolitical situation, then some cultural connect, and energy, terrorism. If you can write on 5-6 points, your answer will be decent one. So write on these 6 points, you will make a decent answer and some general conclusion. Like you can see for India, Mongolia, you can say India is trying to be a global power. It's time we need to take all different countries along with us. So Mongolia will be a good partner in this endeavor, something in this line. You can write some decent answer like this. So again, the thing I am trying to repeat again and again is don't leave an answer. Try to write something. You'll get some decent mark. Like even for the structure, you'll get a mark. Even if you write some basic thing, you will get couple of marks. So this is for GS2. GS2 again, if you can do these basics correct, I think you will get decent marks in GS. Coming to GS3, I got 146 in GS3. I think that is also decently high relatively. GS3 is mainly about economy, disaster management, security issues, and environment, science and technology. So So one economy part, I relied completely on current affairs. I didn't refer any book. I was referring Sri Ram's economy material before prelims, but post that I didn't refer anything. I was only focusing on current affairs. Hindu I did, Indian Express I did, and again mains 365 of Vision. I did repeatedly, like there I did it 3-4 times that magazine. Like economy related current affairs was on my fingertips actually during those 3-4 months. So every question that comes, I used to link with current affairs. I used to make a decent answer there. And again, basic understanding of my economy was like, it was not only just because of numbers, like what is budget deficit, what is current account deficit, what is finance. Not only just numbers. For me, economy is like anything that helps a common man to improve his standard of living is an economic activity for me. So when certain question comes, for me, MG Narega is an economic activity. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana in the rural development, MG this thing, employment generation, all these were actually part of my economy. So when I was writing an economy answer, I was writing focusing more on this part. I was not only focusing on numbers. I was telling them how it helps a common man, how it helps a businessman in tier 2, tier 3 cities. I was writing more on this. The second thing, the other thing I had with in the economy part was I used to have some standard openings. I used to have standard points, like if you are writing for agriculture. I used to have, if you want to increase agriculture more productively, we need to focus more on this post agriculture, post farming, like market. How do you take produce from market, from farm to market? If you can develop this part, we can make agriculture more productive, more profitable. Like if you want to increase jobs, I have this point, like we need to focus on more MSME sector, that job creating sector, like leather, textiles, and you can even develop tourism sector. So I have some standard points for this, like again, if you want to have more investment, you can put that in tourism sector. That will give you the bang for the buck. These are like for every this thing I have some couple of points which I'll focus more. And I forgot to tell, this other thing I focused was economic survey. Economic survey also I did 2-3 times I did. So I was doing a current affairs, economic survey, and mains 365. So whenever an answer comes, I used to link it with this. And I used to make a holistic answer, like I used to write how it affects a common man, and some standard points for certain things. For exports, if you want to develop, like I said earlier, you need to focus more on labor intense sectors, MSME sectors. This part I did. And the second thing in the GS3 was like science and technology, which not many people focus. There's like, for traditionally it has been, for GS3 it's more like economy. So I also did the science and tech part. This also I focus more on current affairs. That to Vision, I didn't refer anything. Vision, current affairs I refer. And I used to write answers in very simple way. Like I didn't use hi-fi terms there. I only use simple normal terms. And sometimes I used to use some standard simple diagrams. Like I think this time there's a question on rocket, nuclear technologies, nuclear process something. So I wrote a flow chart. I put 3 stages. Stage 1 I draw something. Stage 1 I drew something. I made some flow chart there. Again, some standard questions. If you are doing NCERTs from 6, 7, 8 with current affairs, I think that should be fine for science and technology part. Some few suggestions actually, if you are going for science and technology, look out for cryptocurrencies, Aadhaar, 4G technology, again 5G, 4G, 5G technology, fourth industrial revolution, how data interpretation, all these things. Go for nuclear technology, how the three, like this time question has come, nanotechnology. So these are some few topics actually that you need to have good grip on, like stem cells. This time they have asked stem cell. So have a decent understanding and decent idea of on this subject, on these topics. The next thing is again environment and biodiversity. I think as such I didn't prepare anything for this. I was only relying on my prelims books only. I didn't refer anything. I only did current affairs, nothing more than that. And every answer I used to write in a holistic way, very general points I did for environment, nothing more I did. This is this. And for disaster management, again I only followed current affairs. That too, in December 2017 or December 2016, there was an event in Hyderabad, Delhi, about disaster management, and our Prime Minister has given some 10 points on that. So I had these 10 points I read, by hearted that, and whenever a certain answer comes, I used to present that 10 points either in body or some conclusion or some opening. So again in disaster management, very basic things I have did. I did current affairs. I did there's NDMA rules. I saw. I had a glance, and some that event that happened in Delhi. These three things I did, and I wrote with general understanding. I didn't use hi-fi things. I only used general understanding, like some standard stuff I used to write in conclusion. Like even for disasters, if you want to overcome disasters, you need to involve local people. This is my standard answer for every disaster related question. And the other thing is security issues. They're like, I think 3 to 4 questions comes from security issues. I followed current affairs, mains 365 vision I followed, and I did Rajya Sabha TV security issues, security scan. There's a debate, there's a discussion actually, that I followed, and along with some selective watching of big picture, that helped me to have a decent understanding of security related issues. And like whenever some security related issue come, I used to write 3-4 extra points, some decent holistic approach. Again, like I wouldn't say I went into specifics, but I had some decent general. I covered all topics, like how it helps in defense, army, common man, in security. These things very general things I have covered. And there's some few topics that to look out for if you are doing for security issues, like do it for how in coastline, how marine threats, terrorism again, how cyber warfare, and cyber warfare again, space warfare in space or something, and radicalization, de-radicalization. Be familiar with these issues. I think you can have some question, you can expect some question in these lines, similar lines. So this is more or less my GS3 preparation plan. Like if you see, I was only focusing more on current affairs, and if any question comes, I try to relate with current affairs. Current affairs was my core in GS3 preparation, and remaining everything I used to add to beautify that answer. And coming to GS4 ethics, actually, see, this is last year the ethics score went high. It went high up to 130. 136. I have heard people with 136. Like I did this time, there's a less score. I think the scoring came down. Like I got 1 or 2. I think that is a decent score, I believe. Coming to ethics, actually, my basic understanding of ethics was they were not asking what ethics is. They are only trying to check how ethical you are. This is very basic understanding. This is my understanding of ethics. Like they are only trying to check how ethical you are. Like how do you say I'm ethical? Like you can present them with some examples. Yes, hey, look, in my past experience, these are a couple of examples where I was ethical. Or you can create some examples. You can write this thing. This will actually give more. It will give more understanding that this guy is more ethical than writing a definition of what is ethics. This is basic understanding of how I went through. So what I did was I thought making my own notes would help me in this. Like I got Wajiram class notes, Wajiram material, and GS core material I bought. So I sat down and I started making my notes. Like I was doing for every simple language. Like for integrity, I used to have my own definition. I didn't follow any other. I saw somewhere this simple definition, like what is integrity is? Integrity is being honest even if nobody are seeing. This is my definition of integrity. And I used to have a simple example from my personal life. I used to write like this. I was going on a bike at night, 3 o'clock in Hyderabad, certain time, and there was a red light. Nobody stopped at red light, but I thought I stopped at red light, and this is integrity for me. I used to write example in such a simple, small terms. So many smaller scales. Like so, whenever I read something, I used to have some examples, like one example from my personal life, one example from India's independence struggle or India's current polity, and one example I used to look out from Indian mythology. If you get something, I used to write there, or from world polity. These 4 points I covered. Like if certain topic is there, like if you say public administration, or how the king should rule, how a politician, how a leader should be. like I was searching for examples actually. So I got this example on Quora or somewhere, like Quora, like in Kalidas or Meghadutam, it says like king should be like a cloud who collects water from the ocean and spreads it all over, give it 10 times more or 1000 times more water to farms to and distributes equally to everybody. This is how the king should rule. Something, this basic example he gave in Kalidas gave in Meghadutam. So I thought this is very interesting and I collected it there. So I was actually looking for my preparation of ethics was more like looking for examples. Like I was looking for examples, and every time I didn't get from my personal life. So I went to Quora, I went to Facebook, I went to internet. I used internet more for examples. Quora gave me more examples. There's one more example like how an honest person should be there. Like once Lal Bahadur Shastri, I believe, once he was arrested in Quit India movement 1942. He was arrested in 1942, and that time I think one of his daughters or some relative was dead. Like he asked for 15 days leave, this payroll from the government. He said 15 days I'll go since my relatives or daughter has expired. So he went. They gave permission. He went there. By the time he went there, that entire formalities, cremation, that formalities were done, and so there's actually no need for. There's lesser need for him to be there outside. So he went back again. Even before 15 days, he went to the government and said, "Done with this thing. I'm going back to prison." So this is how honest he was. So I was actually collecting these examples, and I was trying to put examples in my answer. Like this one basic thumb rule I have put is whenever I get some question, I used to write 1-2 line definition in my own terms, and then I used to put 2-3 examples. Like I collected this example one, like example in the sense when America got independence, the people asked Washington to become like king. Like they asked Washington to become king. George Washington to become king of United States of America. Like Washington was so good that he said no, it should not be like it should be a democratic country, and so that from then America became a democrat, something like that. So I was trying to collect these examples and present it more in the answer. Like whenever I get a question, I used to put 2 examples in that. I think this actually helped me. The other thing which helped me, I think, like I was never collecting. Whenever some question comes, I was not writing answers related to Socrates or Plato, somebody. I was more into like Indian mythology. I was writing Ramayana. I was quoting words on Ramayana, Mahabharata, and something like Tiruvallur. If you are from Tamil Nadu or something, you can quote Tiruvallur. I used to write something of Vijayanagara, Sri Krishna Devaraya, something. Because my understanding was like Socrates, Jeremy Bentham, you heard from last 3-4 years. So you're actually you grew up listening to stories of Ramayana and Mahabharata. So if you write these things, I think this will give more personalized approach to your answer. And so I thought I would present more from Indian mythology, Tiruvallur or Sri Krishna Devaraya. So I think that worked for me. Maybe you can try out this part of not writing more of Socrates and anything. You can write more from Indian mythology. That will help you. You can write more about prophet. So prophet said this thing, so and so, something like that. And this is for the first part of ethics. And the second part was like case studies. In case studies, more or less, I follow a standard template for case studies. Like I used to have 4-5 line opening for the case. Like this is in the insert in the above case, the following qualities are being tested, and I think this integrity, honesty, compassion, these are being tested in me. And then I used to have some small diagram of what are the stakeholders involved in this case and what is the stakes. I used to write this. I used to draw this diagram. And next thing I did was like what are the ethical issues involved. I kept a thing that every case I used to write at least 2 if not 3 ethical issues. I used to write even small ethical issues also. I used to put an ethical issues and write everything. So examiner would get a feel that this guy is trying to make something, trying to understand smaller things also. The next thing I was like, what are the options in front of me? I used to write 3 standard options, like one is completely against this thing, one is completely following this rule, and I used to have the third one is neutral thing. And I used to put what are the merits of each couple of points, what are the demerits for each couple of points. And for 3 options I used to write these 4 points, 2 against, 2 for, and I used to conclude like this. Considering above situation, I used to have I think it's better if you go to the third option, I think the neutral option. So based on the case you can decide which option to go, but this is how I approach this. I used to have a standard opening. I used to write stakeholders and their stakes in this thing, and third thing I used to write what are ethical issues involved. I used to write even smaller ethical issues also. One more thing with the ethics is, for the first I used to start paper with case studies. Like in the first 1.5 hour I used to attempt 8 case studies, so 15 minutes each. So in the 1.5 hour I used to have part B completed, and from after 1.5 hour I start part A, and I used to, within I think next 7-8, each question will take 6-7 minutes. I used to write part A questions. Like part A questions, I didn't fill the papers again there. I was only trying to write a definition, couple of examples from that, and link it with my personal life. This is thing, and it will take around 1 hour, 1 page to 1.5 page, hardly 1.5 page for every question, and 6 to 7 minutes. Because I actually had collected so many examples in my preparation, and I used to write them, and that actually helped me to finish the answers in 6-7 minutes, and I could able to finish paper in next 1.5 hour. I completely finished the part A part. I think there are some 12 to 13 questions in that. So this is my overall approach of how I approach GS 1, 2, 3, 4 papers. Like I got 492 marks. I only followed this. The aim was again like this. I'll attempt all questions. I'll attempt all questions with average or above average quality, and I'll attempt the questions in a structured way. Like even for the structure, I should get a D, or at least 1 mark additionally. I should get 1 mark. This is my approach for the GS papers. The next stage in this thing is again interview part. It's not actually interview part. In the UPSC says it's a personality test. So it's a more like personality test, and the board spends 30 minutes with you, and they'll make you comfortable so that your natural personality comes out. Like as such, like my interview was on second day. I got around 20-25 days for preparation. I didn't have much time, so I got actually average. In fact, I got 5 marks less than average. So I still couldn't understand how to crack how to score well in interview. But some couple of points I would say, like try to prepare your DAF. Most of the questions come from DAF. The second thing is try to understand your personality, you identify your personality, learn what is it. Instead of running around reading so many things, try to understand what you are and what your personality is, and that will actually should help you more. And regarding the interview, on the interview day, get up to date with the current affairs, because one way to know you is, one way to have an interaction is to talk about whatever things you have in your DAF. If they didn't find that interesting, they will talk about current affairs. So get up to date with current affairs and present a rational view. And only these points I would say, because for the interview I think this should be more than sufficient, and give like 3, 4, 5 marks. That should be done. That should be fine. And last, some couple of general points, like this is for the regarding plan, how I approach this prelims, how I approach mains, how I approach interview. At the end I would say some not a few points about how general points in the preparation. Like first thing is, this exam is not only testing your mental ability, it's about testing your physical in every aspect. So the syllabus is vast. So before your syllabus can break you, I heard one of my sir saying in Wajiram, before the syllabus breaks you, break the syllabus. Break the syllabus into small pieces and do it repeatedly. This is one thing. Second thing is, consistency is very important. It's not that you you read for 16 hours, 15 hours for a couple of days, and then you come down to 3-4 hours next day. If you're doing it for 10 hours or 8 hours a day, do it thoroughly for the next 1 year. I think this will give you more consistent, sustainable results than going for 15 hours, 16 hours a day. The next thing is practice. This practice is more practice, and there's no alternate for this. The more you practice, the more you get. The other thing is, take care of your health, because not too many people will say this, and this is a preparation of 1.5 year and 1.5 to 2 years, and mostly you will be outside your home. So health is very important, because I say from my personal experience, like I didn't take care of my health. Before prelims I was like slogging for 15-16 hours the last 20 days, and I was not caring about my food. So I was stuck with typhoid that time during prelims. I didn't take any medication after prelims. I was only doing it for next 3-4 months. I was only sitting and doing, not caring about what I eat, how, like cleanliness, this everything. And so I didn't focus on my health actually. So just 1 week before mains exam, I was struck with typhoid again and dengue also. Like that exam, the last time the exam was on October 28th, I believe. So I got to know on to October 20, I was like with dengue and my typhoid both came back to me. Like I thought like I was gone. All my preparation of 1.5 years was gone. So on 20th, like I went back to my hometown in Telangana. I stayed 3-4 days with my doctor. Like I was there full saline bottle, so many this thing. And 3-4-5 days, I just got the WBC count just above this minimum level, and then came back. And I was like literally every day I was hoping that I should write the exam. I should sit there for 3 hours and finish the exam. 3 hours and finish the exam was my target then. So somehow it worked well. So take care of your health. That can make or break your exam. So take care of your health. That is very much important. Stay consistently, read repeatedly, practice, and take care of your health. And the most important thing is stay motivated. Like if you are motivated, that can make you sit an extra 1 hour. If that can make you sit an extra day. If you are motivated, I would say like 40 to 50% of your preparation is done. If you are motivated for next 2 years, that your preparation for next 2 years, I think that will give you an edge actually. Stay motivated, stay hungry. Again, I would say at the end, I would conclude like this. Like there is no one way of cracking exam. Whatever I told earlier for last 10, 15, 20 minutes, that's like how it worked for me. Like whatever some certain topper talks, that actually one of the way of clearing an exam. When you are seeing different people speak different things, try to pick up the good from different things and try to develop your own strategy of how to crack an exam. There's no sacrosanct way or this is one perfect way of cracking exam. So try to take the good from whatever I have spoke, whatever which you can think implementable. Try to take that part and develop your own strategy. That I would say. And thank you. And I would suggest Delhi Knowledge Track is also coming up with some good videos on how to prepare some strategies. I keep following Delhi Knowledge Track. I think it will help you. Thank you.